Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching PHTV4. This is Bookshelf, and this is a special edition of Bookshelf. We are going to talk about our favorites of 2022. So it's a little bit of a look back, and if you miss these titles, we're going to recommend that maybe you take a look at them. With me today is my special guest co-host, Janine Kakmar from Palos Heights Library, Head of Public Services. Janine, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here, Dave.
And the books we're going to, this is a really tough list to narrow down because there are way more books that I'd recommend for best of 2022 or favorites of 2022. We tried to narrow this down, and all these books that, you know, like are your favorites or my favorites are on best book lists somewhere.
Yeah.
They're also on ours.
Right, but you know, it's funny because, you know, when you actually talk about these books originally, you haven't read a lot of these books
Right.
because they didn't come out yet. So, but now the books we are talking about, we have
Right.
read them and we have vetted them. We know that whether the publisher's publicity is actually accurate,
Right.
or if it's or not. So, but yeah, a lot of these are on the best reads list that we looked
Whatever,
over.
from newspapers, magazines,
Oh, yeah.
publications,
Yep.
critiques, NPR. I mean, they're best books somewhere,
Yeah.
and we're going to join that list with them.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some fiction titles first from 2022. And the first one is Horses by Geraldine Brooks.
Right, Geraldine Brooks. She's one of my favorite authors. She's, you know, many of you people know her. She wrote People of the Lie, several other ones. But she is out with she came out with her new one, Horses, which is a book that takes place during two time periods, back in 1850 and kind of present day. And it's based on the true story of a record-breaking thoroughbred named Lexington. So we learn about this horse's history, but also, more importantly, we learn about the groom that was an enslaved groom, Jarrett, who was supposed to take care of this horse, and he formed this incredible bond with the horse. And so it talks about the relationship between this race-winning horse, its groom, and like she does in many of all of her books, she braids a lot of the different things together. It's a sweeping story of spirit, obsession, injustice across America's history, and just comes up with a really great story.
Yeah, it
So
sounds like a
yeah, I just
yeah,
think
yeah.
this was very well worth all the publicity.
I know I remember getting the great preview, like a must read, and so it's
Yeah.
lived up to that thing.
Yeah.
Another one recently out,
Yeah.
a little bit different now. We went
Very
from a little
different.
historical context, now we're going to jump. We've got Upgrade by Blake Crouch.
Yes, this is a book I kind of picked up by accident. He had two other books earlier, Dark Matter and Incursion, one of which is being made into a movie by Steven Spielberg. But this is a science fiction-y type of book, which is not typically a book I would pick up. I picked it up and I was really glad I did. It's an intricate plot, it's lightning fast-paced. It's one man's thrilling transformation, literally, as he changes from one person to another in a certain way. And I don't want to give away too many details, because I don't want to, spoil it. But it's a book that asks us to ponder our question about humanity. What if humanity's only hope is a future that really does lie in engineering our own evolution? And that's the question they pose in this book.
It sounds fascinating. The thing that's interesting, and maybe for a reader, if you're not a sci-fi reader, this might be the book to dip your toes into that water.
Yeah,
right?
because it is, you don't get too tied up in ideas that you don't really might not understand or might not care about. But the story, the pacing, the humanity of the story is
It works.
Really, yeah.
Good. All right. The next one is one of my favorites. And I want to mention that these two authors, we're talking about Lincoln Child and Dustin Preston, who are prolific writers. They came up with a new series a few years ago, and this is actually the third in the series, Diablo
They're two
Mesa.
of your favorite authors too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And they, they had the Agent Pendergast series, and at one point in that series, you get introduced to a couple other characters who now have their own spin-off series. And it's I'll give you the Publisher Weekly description, and I've read. It's a great book. It's a fun read. Two Bodies, A Dangerous Secret, A Terrifying Force, the latest excellent novel in the widely popular series featuring Nora Kelly, who's an archaeologist in Santa Fe, based in Santa Fe, I believe, and FBI agent Corey Swanson, brand new agent. And if you go to the first book, you'll meet her in her first case. They're fast, fun reads, thrillers, very entertaining.
And it lived up to its...
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, another fiction title here, Lessons in Chemistry.
Yeah, this is a strange book for me because when you look at the cover of the book, it's kind of, ice cream colored, pastel, and I know I picked this book up only because I was like, I need something light to read. I must have just finished some heavy books. I'm like, I'm going to pick up a light book, and I'm just going to, this one was handy. It was the author's first book. I wasn't really expecting much from it, quite frankly. And oh my God, I was really surprised by it. It was not an average book, and the character, Elizabeth Zott, is not your average woman. She was a woman and scientist in the 1960s. She lost her job in the Institute due to some nefarious things. But like science, she learned that life is unpredictable, and she ends up a reluctant star of a baking show. And she is teaching, but she ends up teaching women more than just about cooking. She teaches them that it's daring, teaching them to try to change the status quo. Don't accept the things that are, the stereotypes that are cast upon you, especially during this time period. Some of it was funny, but some of it, I was just enthralled with this character, Elizabeth Zott. She was just laugh out loud funny sometimes, but also just very determined to do what she needed to do. Great story, and it ended. This is the author's first novel, and it also ended up just blowing up. People are just reading this book like crazy, and there is some talk. I mean, I wasn't the only one who was kind of misguided by that. The cover. There are a lot of people say this book does not look like the cover. So it's kind of funny.
So we're not going to
we
judge
do
a book
judge books by their cover.
In this case, don't do that. And we also know we have a brand new author to look for, probably their future works, and interesting premise. And obviously, when you combine a great character with a great plot, you're going to have a good story.
Yeah.
So. I know this next one is one of your favorites, also one of my favorites I'm actually in the middle of right now. A very, very good author, Barbara Kingsolver, who won so many book awards, and you want to talk about Demon Copperhead. Yeah,
there was, I've read all of her books, Barbara Kingsolver. She's, the Poisonwood Bible, the Bean Trees, the one with the butterflies, I can't think of it now. She's written several, and I've read all of them. But for some reason, I was kind of reluctant to read this book. There was a description of it it seemed kind of hard to,
there's a dark element to it.
Yeah, and I'm
that's
like,
unpleasant,
I don't know if I want to read this book. But I did. I picked it up, and I started actually listen to it, which has a great narrator, too.
And a great audio version.
Oh, my gosh. This book is set in the mountains of southern Appalachia, and it's a story of a boy who was born to a teenage single mother in a single-wide trailer with no assets beyond his dad's good looks and his fierce talent for survival. This boy braves the modern perils of foster care, child labor, derelict schools, athletic success, addiction, which is a strong background in this story, disastrous loves, crushing losses, and through it all, he reckons with his own invisibility in a popular culture where even the superheroes have abandoned the rural people in favor of cities.
I remember reading that line in the story. The superheroes seem to operate in cities. I never thought about it until you use that line in the book. I would agree with you, especially in the part that this was a book. It sounded really interesting. I'm like, the kind of thing I want to read, but some of the elements are so dark in it. I didn't know if I wanted to go. But now that I'm into it, I'm like, no, I have to know what happens to this character. The characters are great, and Demon Copperhead, whose actual name is Damon, his nickname is Demon, he's just a great character. Yeah,
unforgettable. And the author, she wrote it with the idea of David Copperfield in mind, right? So which of course I haven't read that book in eons, but as I'm reading this book, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why.
This is a modernized version.
Yeah,
you know.
we're just one thing after another, and you think, is this kid ever going to get a break?
Yeah.
But I definitely agree with the Washington Post review that they said it's a story of an irrepressible boy that no one wanted, but the readers will love.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's a great descriptor.
Yeah.
All right, so definite favorite, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver there.
Mm-hmm.
Another fiction title, you've got True Biz here.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this and was another book I did not anticipate to read. I didn't know the author. The cover was a little different. I do judge books by their cover. But again, I am glad I picked this up. It's a story of sign language and lip reading and disability and civil rights and isolation and injustice, all for the people who live in the world of the hearing impaired. Like I said, I kind of picked it up by accident, but I was exposed to the world of the hearing impaired students. It was an eye-opener, and it made me actually go watch the film Coda. That was the best. It was the Academy Award winner last year. Coda stands for Children of Deaf Adults, and it was, it just puts you into this world of that myself I'm not familiar with, and as the work of people with hearing impairments and how things work and how they don't work sometimes, and it's very good.
Yeah, and it is a good movie, and obviously the connection, we can see a connection here. And again, maybe a topic people aren't necessarily comfortable with, but, on several best book lists,
yeah.
Bestseller, of course,
It was
but
a
NPR
Reese
was
Witherspoon book,
partial.
yeah.
So it highly, highly regarded. All right, then we've got another fiction title, another one here, Alias Emma.
Oh, yeah. Now this one I, again, picked up, and I'm so glad it's a quick, fast-paced, like I said, breakneck race against the clock. They have 12 hours. Emma has to deliver her asset across the city of London, and has to do it without being surveyed by all the cameras.
This is a spy thriller,
It's a spy thriller. Yeah, sorry, I didn't start with that one. Yeah, after London was hacked by Russian spies, and so now this British spy has to get her asset across the city of London before morning, with Russian spies on her tail.
Hopefully avoiding, somebody's out to get them, like kill them, right?
Yes, very much so. And it's just boom, boom, boom. I couldn't put it down, and I recommended it to my friend. She said she read it. She opened it up on the airplane thinking, oh, she's just going to kind of take a nice snooze on her airplane. She said she was up the whole plane ride reading the book, couldn't wait for it to get done with. So
good.
It is one of those books.
Well, it's nice that, great reads can be fun reads too.
Oh,
right?
yes,
Right.
Absolutely.
Which is, I'm sneaking in a title here, A Sunlit Weapon by Jacqueline Winspear.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the Maisie Dobbs series, I've got to recommend them. It's a great series. Maisie Dobbs is, I think this might be book 17 or something. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And this, it's, again, set in Britain. It's World War II. Eleanor Roosevelt is going to make an appearance in this one.
Okay.
And they're great reads. They're fun. They're exciting. They're fast-paced.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some nonfiction favorites of 2022. And I haven't read this. You, I know, raved about this book, Lessons from the Edge.
Yeah, I did. It's Lessons from the Edge by Maria Jovanovic. She was the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. She was an ambassador to several other countries prior to ending up in Ukraine. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. The cover looks kind of bland. It's a black and white.
It's a picture of her.
Yeah,
right,
black and white
right.
photo, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to read this. Again, I pick it up, and I'm like, it just tells this behind-the-scenes stories of things that we don't, the average people don't know what, U.S. diplomats really go through, the different parts of their job, the kind of stressful things that they have to deal with to keep our country safe, and the people who are overseas that serve our country. But she, her narrative is strong. She tells her stories. It's a great look into a person in this position.
Yeah, a world that we don't normally get a view of,
Yeah.
and you're going to get it here. Okay,
Yeah.
so Lessons from the Edge. Another nonfiction title, and I've mentioned this one before.
Yeah, this
I
was.
liked it, and then I'm sure, can I recommend this? And then, of course, it turns out to be, it was a bestseller for a while, for a nonfiction bestseller. Several best books of the year.
Oh my gosh, it's on every reading list.
It's really kind of strange for a book like this because it feels sciencey. An Immense World by Ed Yong. And in this one, he's going to explore how animals experience the world. And he's really, really good at distinguishing that we all kind of are trapped in the way we experience it, you know. And he does it in a way that's not dry science. He makes it come alive, you know, and it's beyond the five senses. And if you talk to a science person, you'll find out that in school we talk about the five, but there's actually several more than that. And it's easy to recognize those when you start looking at how other animals experience the world. And it's good. He gives you their perspective all over the planet, everything from fish to spiders to, you know, mice to elephants. I mean, the whole gamut, and it's good.
Yeah.
I would recommend. This is written for everybody. This is not high-tech stuff. He wrote it for the regular person. So,
Yeah.
An Immense World.
Yeah, I like, you know, I was just talking with some people how we like to learn something from the books that we read. I mean, of course, nonfiction, you might be expected to learn something from a nonfiction book, but even novels that you might have picked up some detail that author might have put in there that, "Oh, I didn't know that." But it's always, we talk about what a good feeling that is when you're reading something, and you're like, oh, I just learned something. And that sounds like one of those types
For
of books.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend this book to, to everybody. I mean, it deserves its reviews. It deserves its best book of 2022 type recognition.
That's how I kind of felt about this
next
other
one here?
book. The next book that we're talking about, it's a nonfiction book also. It's titled The Naked Don't Fear the Water. It's an underground journey with Afghan refugees by Matteo Akins. And this book, first of all, it's incredible. This author, he was serving in Afghanistan. He's a Canadian author. Serving, writing in Afghanistan, was coming home, and his interpreter, who's Afghani, was, those people were targeted, but if they were left behind, they would be targeted by the Taliban or whoever, because they helped the U.S. troops, or they helped the troops that were there. Well, his interpreter was going to be left there, and this reporter didn't want to leave him to that fate. He wanted to help save him. So he decides to make a journey. Omar is it was the interpreter, is the main character, and he decides to make this heart-wrenching choice to leave his war-torn country to flee, and leaving behind all the people he loved, all the life he knew. So he becomes one of the millions of refugees that leave their home each year. Now, we read about refugees every day in the newspaper or on the news, you see that. After a while, it becomes, sadly enough, something that just we don't see anymore.
Just a number, or just
another word
away from us.
Right, but this book really takes a good look at what a person who's a refugee goes through, and the challenges and the forces that make them make these terrible decisions, to leave their home and to go someplace completely new. And one of the incredible parts about this is the author decides to go with him. He got rid of his passport, the author did, changed his identity to become just another one of the refugees. So he is traveling along with his friend, and they both are refugees on this trail to try to get to freedom and it took several years, and it's incredible. It's incredible that the spirit of these refugees that want to go someplace and make a new life, better themselves. And it's an incredible story of the author who decided to go with his friend, gave up his freedoms, his identity, to become part of the mass and record their tale.
It sounds like an incredible story.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are our favorites or some of our favorites, not all, some of them. Otherwise, this show would be 8 hours long. Some of our favorites of 2022. I do want to mention just a few other titles in closing. That
Yeah.
these are other titles that are on somebody's best books. In some cases, yours or mine. You know, familiar names. A World of Curiosities by Louise Penny. That's
Yeah,
Inspector
she's classic,
Gamache.
yeah.
Check that one out. Last Days of Dinosaurs by Riley Black is a nonfiction about, you know, the end of the dinosaur world that will lead to the mammal world. It sounds sciencey again, but it's a great read. It's written for everybody. We've got The Light We Carry, Overcoming in Uncertain Times by Michelle Obama, which is on several best books, and also I think is still a bestseller right now, or has been for the last several weeks. A Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which I find interesting. We know what he writes, but this book lands on several bestsellers. It breaks from his normal writing style or topic area.
Yeah.
The last one, which I haven't read, but it's moving up, like I'm going to be reading this one soon, is Mercury Pictures Presents. I know you read it and liked it, by Anthony Marra. That's
I do recommend that one as well, yeah. We just didn't have enough time to talk about that
Right.
one.
So a lot of great books out there. And Janine, thank you again for sharing your favorites with us. A lot of great books. If you missed them, maybe, you know, take another run at them.
Yeah. You know, always when you're waiting for if you're waiting for a book to come out or you don't know what to read next, make a list and you'll have it all ready for you.
Yeah. A lot of great books out there. A lot of great books came out in 2022. I'm Dave Wurzall, and you've been watching Bookshelf with my special co-host, Janine Kakmar. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dave.
And thank you for watching. Good reading, and enjoy.